As of March 12, 2026, the local search landscape basically experienced an absolute earthquake. I mean, Google rolled out a feature called Ask Maps, and it is an AI chatbot powered completely by Gemini. And honestly, it fundamentally changes everything you thought you knew about getting customers through your doors.
Oh, absolutely. It changes the entire game.
Because when a user asks for local services now, they do not get a list of 10 options anymore. They get one.
Yeah.
One single recommended business. And the rest of the businesses in town, they're just, well, they're completely invisible.
Right. So if you are a commercial vended laundry owner and you are not optimizing your digital and physical systems right this second to adapt to this rollout, you need to understand the stark reality here. Your competitors are going to absorb all of your leads.
Wow, yeah, all of them.
Every single one. I mean, the margin for error is just gone. So the mission of this deep dive is to explore exactly how you must move your business from a reactive, gut feel operation to an infrastructure that makes strictly data-backed decisions. Because you aren't convincing the customer anymore. The AI is making the buying decision for them.
Yeah, the AI is essentially the gatekeeper now. So, welcome to this technical briefing. Today, we are analyzing specific scenarios straight out of the lab. And when we talk about the lab, we're referring to the actual physical proving ground, which is the living lab of Super Clean Laundry, located up in Lake City, Michigan.
Which is vital to point out because we're looking at real-world infrastructure here. This is running in a real-world market, yielding, quantifiable data. This isn't just theory on a whiteboard.
Right, exactly. And the models we're going to dissect today were designed by a lead strategist we will refer to throughout this analysis, strictly by his operational title, which is the Precision Laundry Architect. Because surviving this AI shift requires exactly that architecture. So before we can even begin to talk about automating the physical wash and fold machines inside a facility, we really have to solve the digital funnel first. I mean, if Ask Maps filters you out, the most efficient machines on Earth are just going to sit empty.
Yeah, and the origin of this digital strategy is actually fascinating when you dig into the scenarios. Long before operating laundromats, the Precision Laundry Architect was selling fishing bait through live bait and tackle vending machines.
Wait, really? Fishing bait?
Yeah, live bait. And that hyper-niche business model clarified this really brutal truth about customer acquisition. He realized early on that relying on platforms like, say, Facebook is essentially a dead end if you need to capture intent-based buyers.
Well, yeah, because Facebook is an interruption engine, right? I mean, people are scrolling for entertainment. They aren't trying to solve an immediate problem like finding a commercial laundry service for their hotel linens or whatever. You might get some brand awareness, but you don't get immediate conversions.
Exactly. The architect recognized that Google Business is the primary, absolute battleground for intent. And that battleground has completely transformed with Ask Maps. We have officially moved away from keyword typing to natural language search.
So what does it actually look like for the user?
Well, the user isn't just typing the fragmented phrase, laundromat near me into a search bar anymore. They are opening Maps and asking it a conversational question. They're asking, which laundromat near me has financing options for commercial accounts? Or, which laundromat nearby has heavy-duty washers and emergency services.
Right. So Gemini understands the nuance, the context, and the specific pain points within that natural language query. But the critical vulnerability for owners here is where Ask Maps actually pulls its answers from. Because it isn't scouring your entire website or trying to read between the lines. It pulls its recommendations exclusively from the completeness of your Google Business Profile, or GBP.
Yes. If you have a phenomenal, say, drop-off wash and fold service, but you haven't explicitly structured that data into the exact fields Google provides, Ask Maps assumes it does not exist.
It just blanks it out.
Totally. The AI does not guess. It does not infer. If the specific data point isn't mapped to the entity, your business simply evaporates from the search results.
Which means we need a mechanism to ensure you stay visible, obviously. So the scenarios outline an SEO blueprint for Ask Maps that contains 7 specific operational fixes. The first 2 are foundational, right? Your primary and secondary categories must be exact.
Right, you can't just select laundromat and walk away.
Exactly. You have to map the specific commercial services. And then your services section must be populated with specific granular names, not just generic umbrella terms.
Yeah, and the third fix is where the semantic matching really happens. You have a 750-character limit for your business description. The AI actually reads those characters to build a contextual web of what your business actually does. So you need to use every single character to explicitly mention the specific cities you serve and the exact services you provide.
Because you are literally feeling the AI, the vocabulary it needs, to match against a customer's spoken query.
You're handing it the answer key.
Right. Now, I do want to challenge the methodology on the next two fixes, which cover photos and reviews. Because traditionally, the playbook for a local brick and mortar was to hire a photographer, take like 200 high-quality photos of the gleaming new facility, dump them all onto the Google profile on a Tuesday, and just call it a day.
The old way of doing things.
Yeah, and for reviews, you'd run a promotion once a year to get a massive spike in 5-star ratings. According to the old algorithm, that checked the box for completeness. Why wouldn't that work for Ask Maps?
Well, because Ask Maps isn't just looking for an archive, it is looking for vitality. The AI interprets data through the lens of activity signals. So if your last photo was uploaded 2 years ago, Ask Maps actually starts to doubt your operational status.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a dormant listing looks identical to a closed business in the eyes of the AI.
So dumping 200 photos at once actually hurts you long term because you exhaust your content without establishing a timeline of activity.
Exactly. The data out of the lab dictates a very different cadence. The blueprint requires adding 10 new photos this week just to establish a baseline. But then you must implement a strict operational rhythm of 2 to 3 new photos per month going forward. Consistency proves the lights are still on and the business is active.
And I imagine that same logic applies to the reviews.
Oh, it applies exponentially to reviews. In this new natural language algorithm, recent reviews will obliterate old reviews. 80 reviews from the past 3 months are vastly more valuable to Ask Maps than 200 reviews from the past 2 years.
Because it's proving you're still doing it.
Exactly. Because when the AI scans the text of those recent reviews, it is actively verifying that you currently provide the services people are asking for today.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
If a customer's review from Tuesday says, they handled my heavy-duty King comforter easily, Ask Maps ingests that sentence, cross-references it with a user asking for heavy-duty washers, and immediately makes the match.
Right. Which points to the real operational fix here. You cannot wait to ask for reviews. You must text the customer the exact same day the service is rendered. The point of maximum relief, the moment they pick up their perfectly folded laundry, is when they are most likely to leave a detailed, keyword-rich review.
And if you wait
a week, the psychological signal decays. You get a generic 5 stars good place review, which gives the AI 0 semantic data to work with.
Right, which defeats the whole purpose. And just rounding out the 7 fixes, posting weekly updates to highlight seasonal tips, and then preemptively filling out your own Q&A section with the most common questions. You don't wait for the customer to ask. You build the data set yourself. But the timeline here is what really stood out to me in the sources.
The 30 to 60-day window.
Yeah. The architect's data suggests owners only have a 30 to 60-day window before competitors catch on to this filtering mechanism.
It's a compounding snowball effect. The business that Ask Maps recommends today gets the physical customer tomorrow. That customer leaves the recent review, which strengthens the business's activity signals. That makes Ask Maps even more likely to recommend them to the next user.
So once that flywheel starts spinning...
Trying to catch up 60 days later is mathematically brutal. You just can't close the gap.
Okay, so let's assume you execute the blueprint perfectly. You win the Ask Maps battle. The digital funnel is wide open, and suddenly your facility is seeing this massive, unprecedented spike in foot traffic and commercial leads. In a normal world, that is the dream scenario. But according to the data out of the lab, this is the exact moment the traditional business model completely breaks down.
It shatters under the volume. The traditional labor-heavy way of running a laundry facility relies on what the precision laundry architect defines as manual grit.
Manual grit.
Right. It's the reactive sweeping of floors, the constant physical presence of the owner plugging holes, the agonizing game of looking at a massive utility bill at the end of the month and trying to guess where the money went.
Yeah, and manual grit simply cannot scale. To survive the volume that an optimized AI search funnel will deliver, you have to transition the physical space into what the architect calls precision architecture. And to understand how that works, we really need to establish the operational vocabulary used in the lab. These are the linguistic guardrails that force the transition from a hobbyist mindset to a data-backed system.
Right.
So let's start with the cost filter. What is that?
The cost filter is an AI-driven analytical layer used to sift through raw utility data. See, in a manual grid operation, you get a water bill for $4,000, you groan, and you pay it. The cost filter changes that completely. It uses software integrations to match utility flow data against the timestamp transaction data from your payment systems.
So it's actively looking for discrepancies.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the core enemy of profitability, which they call unproductive consumption. This is defined as any utility usage, water, gas, or electricity, that occurs without a corresponding paid machine turn.
It is the silent killer of the business. If the cost filter detects that water is flowing at 2 a.m., but the point of sale system shows 0 paid transactions at that hour, you have unproductive consumption. You have a stuck valve. You are bleeding profit.
It is the exact equivalent of leaving your car idling in the driveway overnight. You are burning highly expensive fuel, the engine is experiencing wear and tear, but the vehicle is getting you absolutely nowhere. There is 0 return on that resource expenditure.
That's a great way to put it. And to measure that idling engine, the lab utilizes a metric called efficiency per cycle, or EPC. This is the ultimate indicator of facility health. It calculates the exact utility cost of a single machine turn against the revenue of that specific turn. Precision architecture isn't concerned with gross monthly revenue. It is obsessed with the isolated profitability of every single spin of the drum.
But calculating efficiency per cycle relies on timely data, right?
Yeah.
If a machine starts leaking hot water on a Tuesday, and you don't discover it until you run an audit on Friday, you've lost hundreds of dollars. The notes refer to this dangerous gap as system latency.
Yeah, system latency is the time delay between a mechanical or operational problem occurring on the floor and the management system actually detecting it so a solution can be deployed. In a manual grit business relying on physical inspections, system latency is measured in days or weeks.
It's just terrifying.
It is. In precision architecture, the infrastructure is built to measure latency in hours, or ideally, minutes.
And shrinking that latency requires the owner to identify their magic variables.
Magic variables are incredible. They are the small, microscopic technical levers that radically alter the financial output of the facility without massive capital investment. We are talking about adjusting the water temperature curves down by 3 degrees or dialing in precise chemical injection ratios.
Just tiny tweaks.
Tiny tweaks. But by adjusting these variables, you protect the efficiency per cycle, saving thousands of dollars a year in unproductive consumption without the customer ever noticing a change in wash quality.
So we have the theory and we have the vocabulary, but practically speaking, tracking efficiency per cycle and dropping system latency to near 0 requires more than just a spreadsheet. You need a highly specific hardware and software integration. You need a tech stack.
Oh, absolutely. The physical reality of the building has to support the digital ambition of the data.
So let's examine the actual physical realities of the living lab super clean laundry in Lake City. Now, this is a semi-rural market where the nearest competitor is over 15 miles away, making it an isolated testing ground. The hardware footprint starts with 4 standard 18-pound top loaders. The sources note these are primarily used for what they call washer library experiments.
Right. The top loaders serve as the baseline. They are the control group for testing baseline cycle times, water retention, and customer behavior before extrapolating those findings to the larger, vastly more expensive equipment.
And from there, the floor scales up to massive front loaders with capacities reaching 80 pounds.
Right.
For drying, they run Dexter pocket dryers and Speed Queen high-efficiency units. But the critical piece of hardware, like the linchpin for the entire data strategy, is that every single dryer and the majority of the washers are equipped with SpiderWash credit card readers.
And this cannot be overstated. The credit card readers are not merely there for customer convenience. They are the physical sensory nodes of the facility. They are the nervous system feeding raw transaction timestamps back into the digital brain. Without those nodes, tracking efficiency per cycle is completely impossible. You are flying blind.
Which perfectly transitions us to the digital architecture itself. Because how do you ingest all that hardware data and manage the facility without being trapped inside the building 80 hours a week?
Right, you need the right software stack.
Exactly. The lab utilizes a highly specific software stack to make these hands-off SOPs a reality. First, you have the Clean Cloud point of sale system, which aggregates the machine turns, correlates the revenue, and maps it against the utility draw.
Then, to handle the customer influx from Ask Maps that we talked about earlier, they employ an AI phone receptionist named Bella, built by a company called Allo. Bella handles 207 customer service.
No, she isn't just a fancy voicemail, right? She integrates directly into the system.
Oh, way beyond voicemail. She ingests natural language from callers, answers repetitive operational questions using the facility's FAQ database, places specific orders, and captures commercial account details while the owner is literally asleep.
Hmm.
Think about the system latency we discussed earlier. If a lucrative commercial client calls at 9:40 p.m., leaves a voicemail, and the owner calls back at 9:40 a.m. the next day, that is a 12-hour latency. In that time, the client may have called a competitor. Bella reduces that latency to 0. The lead is captured and logged into the CRM instantly.
That is massive. But, inevitably, the physical world requires a human being. Machines need maintenance. Lint traps need cleaning. The lab uses a platform called scorecep.com to strictly pre-qualify all new hires, who they refer to as laundry specialists. They evaluate these specialists based on 4 non-negotiable pillars: integrity and culture, reliability and logistics, profitability mindset, and digital fluency.
Right, the 4 pillars.
Now, I have to stop and point out the massive operational friction here. The second pillar involves a chaos filter. What is that?
The chaos filter is brilliant. It's a set of behavioral questions built into ScoreApp designed to weed out applicants whose personal or professional lives are entirely reactive. You are filtering out individuals who view a standardized schedule as a loose suggestion rather than a rigid framework. You cannot build precision architecture on top of human chaos.
That makes sense. I understand filtering for reliability. But I have to push back heavily on digital fluency. I mean, we are talking about the wage economics of a laundromat here. We are hiring someone to mop floors, wipe down stainless steel, and clean lint traps. Trying to find an employee willing to do manual labor who also possesses the technical fluency to troubleshoot a POS system or manage an API error seems like a recipe for constant turnover. Are we trying to hire IT support on a janitorial budget?
Well, the wage economics only fail if you continue to view the employee as a janitor. That is the fundamental paradigm shift of the lab. At Super Clean Laundry, the overarching target is 100% hands-off management through AI-driven standard operating procedures. You are not hiring someone to clean a lint trap, you are hiring a system operator.
So the physical cleaning is just a byproduct of managing the system.
Yes, exactly. The staff must be able to interface directly with the digital architecture. They need to understand how to correctly input audit data into Clean Cloud. They need to recognize what a specific error code on the SpiderWash node means for the cost filter. If your staff cannot navigate the digital stack independently, then the owner becomes the bottleneck.
And then the whole thing breaks down.
Exactly. The owner has to step in to translate the physical problem into a digital solution. And the moment you do that, your passive architecture collapses right back into a 60-hour-a-week job.
The guardrails here are just incredibly strict. The architect's model demands that the owner spend exactly 10 hours a week on the business. Those 10 hours are reserved purely for strategic growth, analyzing the efficiency per cycle data, and refining system documentation. You are not plunging toilets. You are not manually counting quarters.
Which brings us to the ultimate magic variable at Super Clean Laundry. It is the concept of the kerf, or the thickness adjustment.
Right, the kerf. So in traditional woodworking, the kerf is the width of the cut made by the saw blade. It's the material that is turned into sawdust and essentially lost in the process of cutting the wood.
Exactly. And in precision architecture, the kerf adjustment represents the gap between your baseline labor costs and your maximum automated profit. Human labor is the saw blade. The friction, the errors, the system latency caused by human management, that is the sawdust. That is lost profit.
Right.
By utilizing tools like Bella, the AI receptionist, and by strictly hiring for digital fluency so employees can execute AI-driven SOPs without supervision, you are engineering the thinnest kerf possible. You are minimizing the waste generated by operational friction.
So you are filtering out the noise to find the absolute maximum return on investment. You are building a machine that runs the machine.
It is the total evolution from letting a business happen to you to architecting the exact financial outcomes you demand through data.
Moving from a reactive hobbyist who looks at a spiked water bill and just, crosses their fingers that next month is better, to a proactive architect building robust, interconnected systems for genuine financial freedom.
Exactly.
Well, as a reminder to you listening, this audio segment serves as the audio lab for this larger ongoing project. If you are realizing right now that your digital funnel is broken, or that your system latency is costing you thousands of dollars a year in unproductive consumption, you have to take action before the Ask Maps window closes. You can find the exact prompts used in these scenarios, the specific AI instructions for the cost filter, and the hiring frameworks by visiting aiforlaundromats.org.
The blueprints are fully documented. I mean, the raw data from the Living Lab is available for you to adapt.
And make sure you subscribe to the Lowdown newsletter. The stated goal is to never miss a Monday briefing, so you can stop putting out operational fires and start building your own architecture.
And, looking at how fast this technology is accelerating, it raises an important, almost daunting question about the future of local commerce. If an AI like Ask Maps is already predicting the exact single business a customer needs based purely on conversational language, and an AI receptionist like Bella is already handling commercial intake, customer service, and CRM logging without any human intervention,
Yeah.
how long until AI systems start predicting exactly when a community's laundry baskets are full, dispatching the service before the customer even picks up their phone?
Wow. That is the frontier we are heading toward. And if your physical and digital systems aren't synchronized for today's data, they certainly won't survive tomorrow's.